Hi everyone, welcome back. I am here to give my presentation on my audit of a STEM K through 12 teacher training program. The program I chose is C-STEM, which stands for Communication and STEM, and I will get into a little bit more about what that is about. So, to start off, I will discuss the program aims and the mission and vision portion of their programming. So, the first objective that they list is that they support teachers in delivering project-based learning that ignites curiosity and teaches communication and STEM, C-STEM, skills to all students. So, a really big driving point of their program is the integration of not only the four original disciplines, but the addition of communication in order to not only build up students' abilities within the STEM field, but also their effectiveness in communicating about the STEM curriculum and making them more viable prospects as they move from the educational setting to the professional world. And a second objective of theirs is to create a world where academically disadvantaged students have high quality communication and STEM experiences that catapult them into transformative spaces, creating opportunities for economic and social mobility. So, again, to tie back to the first objective, because the program really focuses on disadvantaged students, and specifically, they talk about representing or educating underrepresented population. So their programming is primarily geared towards women since they are historically underrepresented and are have less access to STEM curriculum and STEM careers, and also students of color and of minority populations that are also underrepresented in the field. And to tie that all together, their main goal and mission is to make STEM accessible to all students. That is what is listed on their website. And so, what we are going to do is explore a little bit more about if they are able to reach that goal after doing an audit and doing some research into what their programming looks like. So, before we dive into more specifically about CSTEM, I wanted to just talk a little bit about um, my viewpoint as a future educator that will be responsible for delivering STEM education and how there are so many different options out there for different types of training programs for educators around the subject matter. So the first were degree programs that are educate available through educational institutions, accredited programs through alternative sources, which CSTEM is an example of, and then just entirely private for-profit programs that just offer um, the training or the curriculum or the materials for the curriculum, and don't offer any sort of continuing education or accreditation programs or degree. So I will say that I chose to dive into CSTEM specifically because I think for me, there is some level, although I know it varies in um, every program is different and it might vary in efficacy and um, not all programs are created equally, but I think there is an inherent trust or faith in a university or degree program that is designed to have um, provide additional learning and additional education for teachers and educators within the STEM field. I think that, anything run by, again, a university or an official college, I am inherently going to trust that it does at least a pretty good job, if not a really good job, of providing a training and a curriculum to teachers that is relevant to the current state of the field, that it is um, going to tie into the standards and the expectations that we presently hold for both STEM and general education and special education curriculum. I think it is going to traditionally be one that, already has its legs behind it, and that we have, again, just a little bit more trust in, obviously. Whereas I personally hold some skepticism over these programs that are either entirely private or funded or privately ran and the for-profit programs. And so I was, in the spirit of STEM and in the spirit of science, wanting to know more and just kind of had this open-ended inquiry of, what are these, what does one of these programs look like? Is it effective in reaching its goal? Is it comparable to the training that you receive when you go for, a continuing education? Or or an additional degree specifically tied to STEM, because I also think that as special educators, most of us will not be specializing in STEM, but we will be to some degree or another responsible for um, helping our students, if not delivering curriculum in the STEM field. So I think that, it is like, for me personally is I'm much less likely to go back to school to get a degree that's going to specialize in within the degree of STEM, but I still am going to need to know about STEM, right? So there a program like this where it's kind of that middle ground where it is accredited and you can earn those continuing education credits, but it is not going to mean going back for an entire other program is something that I feel like educators like me might be prone to use. And additionally, I think that these private for-profit curriculums are now more widely available, and districts are also looking into incorporating these as well. So that's where my curiosity came from, and that is why I wanted to take a look into it and see what it has to offer. So CSTEM is again the program, and what they currently offer is first and foremost, what we're here to research today, the teacher training program. As mentioned on the previous slide, it is an accredited program that offers the opportunity to earn 2.7 CEUs, which is continuing education units. So it is a formalized and nationally recognized and internationally recognized teacher training program that is tied to the NGSS standards. It is based out of Texas, so it is aligned with generally the curricula expectations of schools within the United States. However, they do have they do have users in other countries as well, quite a few other countries, 42 to be exact. And so, but it is modeled after the US education system. They, within the teacher training, they also offer access to a full K through 12 curriculum and the accompanying toolkits for students. So not only are they offering teacher training on how to deliver and implement a STEM curriculum, but they also are offering the actual curriculum and materials to do so. Additionally, they offer challenge competitions and host, think like robotics competition, science fair type things. But they call them challenge competitions because they are specific to their C-STEM initiatives, and they're hosted by them and their sponsors, and that's a really great way that they tie into the communities around them. So even if they aren't maybe specifically in a certain district or school system, they're still out in those communities impacting students and educators from the area. Additionally, it offers internships if you're looking for professional opportunities within the STEM education field. And also, they are offering a dedicated and responsive support team. When I looked into that a little bit more, as far, it pertains specifically to the teachers that purchased the training, and they are available 24/7 to not only just problem shoot and troubleshoot the training tools and the software and the materials themselves, but it also extends beyond that, where it does actually offer, um, you know, more generalized support to the teachers that are actively in the training portal. So obviously, when we talk about STEM, we don't normally talk about communication. So that is something that actually drew me to this. I was interested in the fact that they're incorporating communication into this. And so their purpose of incorporating communication, according to their website and their directives, is that they are working to create a world where economically disadvantaged students have high quality communication and STEM experiences that catapult them into transformative spaces, creating opportunities for economic and social mobility. Um, their main goals with incorporating this and giving these opportunities is to improve the academic outcomes of these students. As you know, as we learned a lot in our readings and our research about this course, that the purpose of the STEM curriculum presently is to integrate all four disciplines together as opposed to teaching them in an isolated manner. And incorporating communication into that is a way to deepen those connections and deepen their understanding of the material to make it more realistically reflect the real world. And in that vein, that in turn, it's like a domino effect, and it increases that retention because it's a way to practice those communication and STEM skills in concert during school hours through this purposefully designed curriculum. And also, they provide opportunities to do so in the after school programs and competitions that they help and that they host and sponsor as well. So I think that this is a really great idea. And I think it just further enhances and takes that spirit of the direction that STEM is heading of, making sure that these tools and these skills that we are not only utilizing as educators, but we're teaching our students are being used and integrated in a way that is reflective of how we're actually going to use them in the real world so that kids are truly practicing those necessary skills and they're able to properly apply them when they go out into their communities or into their professional fields in the future. So now that we have a better understanding of what the C-STEM intention is and what the aim of the program is, here, this is where the part where I'm going to do an audit of the actual success and how I feel they are either effectively or ineffectively, or a little bit of both in all honesty, reaching their goals. So since its creation in 2002, the C-STEM Training Institute has grown to offer a 27-hour program with educators earning 2.7 CEUs with over 5,000 students. Students being the educators and the teacher in the teaching program, training program, excuse me. Their community access actually spans to 42 countries, which I found really impressive. It was, again, a US based initiative out of Texas. And their founder, Reagan Flowers, is a Black woman in STEM who really found that she grew up in a impoverished area, and she felt like she was, for lack of a better term, blocked out of STEM just by virtue of having lack of access to um, the the materials and the opportunities that some of her, counterparts and peers in other areas and of other characteristics had. She felt like her male counterparts and the her white peers that were in more affluent areas had more opportunities to it. So when she was able to make her way into the field and become quite successful, and including in working with NASA and teaching at various levels of education, she really picked up this initiative and this drive to make it a point to make it more accessible to people who, in her own words, looked and had the same background as her. And I thought that was really, really admirable to have that passion and really create something for others from it. So the fact that she had that idea, based on her own localized experience, and she's now had impact in 42 countries across the world, that's pretty amazing to me. So an estimated 200,000 students and teachers have been served by CSTEM in the US alone. And to speak to her goal of increasing the access to students of color, her national participation by ethnicity in the US is 42% Hispanic, 38% Black, 11% white, 7% Asian, and 2% Native American, and it was 5% other. And I think that that speaks to the fact that by really having a clear goal in mind and having a target audience and having a target population that she wanted to lift up and help by creating this program, and to see those numbers, that's exactly who she's reaching. I didn't put on this slide, but also a, a recent study, I believe it was in 2023, that was done on um, her the the populations in Texas where the program originated that were being served by CSTEM. It was 61% females be having access to her C-STEM curriculum. So again, just speaks to the fact that in terms of setting out to specifically target those populations and provide opportunities that were not inherently there for those populations, I would say it certainly had a high degree of success because she's making a difference and she is getting access to those she is providing access to those populations to a really really solid STEM curriculum. And in that vein, she and the entire team at C-STEM have been um, recognized for their efforts over the years. So the training program, as I said, is accredited, and it's actually accredited by the International Accreditors for Continuing Education and Training, which speaks again to not only being accessible within the US, but within other regions of the world. She was a finalist for the World Innovation Summit for Education Awards. So just in case I didn't say it, this is Reagan Flowers. I'm talking about who's the founder and of this program and still the head of the board today. And then also the program itself was recognized by the White House as a STEM Access Champion for Change. And all this just speaks to the fact that, while I had my skepticisms over this being a private and for-profit program to some degree, that it also has some really solid validity in the field and it has had a very clear impact. Um, And I think that when I looked into the program itself and I looked into the toolkits and the training program and the curriculum, they give a few little snippets and examples into the curriculum. I can see why it is, there is a very comprehensive program that she's been able to deliver that has um, access to uh, what I, without obviously purchasing it, a um, a curriculum that addresses all of the pertinent, relevant fields within STEM today that have, it addresses a lot of the subject material K through 12 that you would expect to see in STEM offerings and including updated ones. We know that that technology is advancing so quickly. We know that engineering is a growing field that's rapidly expanding in relevance and prominence. And um, her curriculum offerings, their curriculum offerings, excuse me, she's no longer a team of one. Their curriculum offerings really reflected that. And I think the fact that she provides toolkits, the toolkits are downloadable, so all the materials can be downloaded digitally, is also extremely helpful because it increases that accessibility and for people to be able to access it, get their hands on it, and bring it into their classrooms. And then furthermore, taking that another step and going out into the community and offering these challenge competitions and these um, pseudoscience fairs and things such as that really um, puts in place those connections and also um, just speaks to the fact that a it is a program that is worthwhile and you can see why it's highly regarded and respected. So I do think that overall, she's done a really nice job, and the team at CSTEM has done a really nice job of developing what I would say is a worthwhile and impressive program. That being said, obviously, no program is perfect. We all can always be looking to improve. And so there are some limitations within the program, and there are some improvements I would make. Um, First and foremost, you can't avoid it entirely, but be irresponsible not to note that cost is going to be a barrier. So this is, I did do some research and it did find it to be on par with the cost of similar programs. Off the top of my head, it was, um, ranging from about um, $1,400 for a toolkits that would serve 100 students to um, 4,800 on the really high end secondary robotics lab level curriculums toolkits for 100 students. So and that seems to be what's out there. It sounds crazy, but when you think about education budgets, though we know that there's never enough money, it, education isn't inexpensive. There's a reason that education budgets are so big and yet it's still not enough. Things cost a lot of money and that's no different here. So while again I did find it to be on par with the cost of similar programs, it still costs money. And when you're talking about especially having a target audience of um, disadvantaged students and probably areas that are going to like, cities and smaller towns and rural areas that are going to have the target populations and also probably concurrently don't have the same budgets that more affluent towns and districts might. Any cost is an obstacle, and especially when we think about the fact that, while STEM has changed so much, it's not entirely new. A lot of these districts already have curriculums in place, and so um, replacing an existing curriculum is going to be something that can stand in the way. And furthermore, I do think that another limitation or something that I a little bit take umbrage with is that I think that CSTEM certainly sets out to make STEM more accessible to some underserved populations and underrepresented populations. Specifically, I think it does an excellent job of targeting and uplifting um, women and students of minority groups and um, students of color into the field of STEM. I do think that it does not quite accomplish the goal of making it accessible to all students, because something I did not find a lot of is consideration for students with disabilities, students with exceptionalities. And I think that therefore you can't really say that you want to increase it for all students that are underrepresented, because as we have learned within this course, students with disabilities um, are are also very much underrepresented within the STEM community and both in education and in the fields of STEM and their careers. So I do think that it fell short there, and I think it certainly could incorporate many more principles of universal design when talking about this teaching program and curriculum, both giving tips and tricks and training to educators on how to incorporate the students that are in their classrooms that qualify for special education, and also within the curriculum itself to consider students with special needs when creating those toolkits and designing those that curriculum. So and then something that I just would make as a suggestion to CSTEM is that I did find, I went in and I looked, and they do have a social media presence. So they do have an Instagram, they do have a Facebook, but I do feel like they're not making the most of it. They had very few followers. Instagram, they had 852 followers. Facebook, not too many more. And they post occasionally, like maybe 1 to 2 times a month on their main grid. And I just think that in the world we live in today, social media, while poses some scary things in regards to our students in a lot of ways, in terms of something like this, and it is a business that they could be utilizing it more to more efficiently reach their goal. Because I think that not only does it serve as a natural advertisement by increasing exposure, but also it's a way to like connect with these communities that they're reaching out to. So if they were to be going to events that um, really highlighted women and students of color, and in my opinion, what should also be like the disability community, and they were making these connections and on social media and posting on their page and advertising those events, and in turn making ingratiating themselves in the community in that way, it's really a way that they could grow their business and their access, and probably increase the amount of people that are participating and choosing their program, as far as a teaching program and a trade and a curriculum. So I think that they're just not quite leveraging their social media presence the way that they could. And if they were to do so, I think they would be more efficient at reaching um, all of the students that they could be helping by having access to this curriculum. So in that vein, if I were to make my own initiatives based around the C-STEM, but taking it a step further, my very first objective would be to design a training program and curriculum that maintains the goal of increasing representation in STEM of disenfranchised groups that also considers learners with disabilities and exceptionalities. Um, I think very much that um, universal design has such a powerful place in our classrooms, but especially within STEM, I think that, you know, um, STEM is so reflective of our society today and the direction that it's heading and the career opportunities that our students will be looking at when they finish high school and go on to either further education or into their fields. And I think that students with disabilities have a place there as well, and students with exceptionalities have a place there as well. But that needs to start in the classroom. So I would first be really focused on making sure that I update the curriculum to consider them just as much as I'm already considering the women, students from low income areas and students of color, because all of them can be served with this program if considered intentionally. So, um, my objective number two would be to offer a scholarship or direct sponsorship initiative specifically for educators who are part of the populations. So, an initiative for women, educators of color, and educators with disabilities or who work in special education. Again, I think that the to C-STEM's credit, they do offer scholarship and sponsorship opportunities, but I think that um, the same way that you're targeting this curriculum to lift up students of these different groups and populations, I think that you'd be smart to also lift up the educators of the same, right? Because if the goal is to bring more women, more students of color, more students with disabilities, more students from impoverished areas into STEM and give them a chance in the field and give them a chance at these careers, um, it also makes sense to want those same people to have a opportunity to be educators in STEM as well. So I think that just more purposeful and more intentional distribution of who is available for these, or who's the recipient, excuse me, of these scholarships and sponsorships would be a smart move and would be in alignment with the goals and visions of the program. And then finally, I just think that with reach to 42 countries around the world, creating a network connecting these individuals using technology that can include video calling and translation softwares would amplify the reach of the program and expose educators and students to a more diverse community of STEM participants. And in turn, this would create more opportunities both educationally and professionally and reinforce the powerful impact of combining communication and STEM. Again, something that drew me to this program was the integration of not only the four disciplines of STEM, but additionally the communication piece as well. And I think that they're on the right track, but there is just even more that they could do. So I think that technology is such a wonderful thing. And, video calling and translation makes it so that we can much more easily interact with people who speak different languages or in different parts of the world than us or different parts of the country, even. And I think that um, really recognizing that you can not only just as CSTEM reach out to these communities and reach out to these educators and students that you're working with and impact them. But then if you build a network within the educators and the students you're impacting, that can really amplify um, that connection and that opportunity for increased community. And I think it could be a really um, great way to grow this program and deepen the intention of the mission that CSTEM set out to accomplish in the first place. So, in conclusion, I think that CSTEM, though not perfect, represents some of the most important ideas and concepts that we have focused on throughout this course. I think that by targeting the delivery of STEM opportunities to populations that are currently underrepresented in the field, it does inherently increase interest and exposes new learners that could potentially fill the growing need for professionals within the related industries. Also, as I said earlier, and as we have continuously learned, that a driving force in STEM today is the integration of the multiple disciplines, and the purpose of that is to engage learners and to better reflect the real world applications of the concepts that are being studied within the classroom. And Because of that, I think that the program's use of not only the four STEM subjects, but additionally blending communication principles into their training and their curriculum, really does reflect the spirit of STEM, the STEM community at its present form. And I think that because of that, I would recommend C-STEM, and I would personally be comfortable using it um, for myself and for my students. And on a final note, as we wrap up this class after a great 7 weeks, um, I think that we have, we've all done our course readings, we've all done a ton of research related to the assignments, and then we've had class discussions both within group work and on our discussion boards. And I think that the main takeaways are that STEM education has a growing emphasis within school curriculum because of its relevance in today's world. Technology is booming, engineering is booming. We have seen the power of not only math to supplement these other fields, but also how much utilizing math in the other spaces can reinforce the mathematics concepts that we're trying to instill in our children when we teach it in isolation. And science, as we know, is just everywhere. That curiosity never goes away. The more that we learn about the world around us, the more opportunities science has to expand and the more questions we have. So I think that we as educators must carefully consider how we can best prepare our students for the opportunities, both for learning and professional careers that the field of STEM brings. And in order to do that, we really have to be intentional, right? So we have to make sure that we're not only teaching the four disciplines in concert with each other, that way we are reflecting the real world applications and the real world problems that our students are going to hopefully someday go out and solve, right? But also that specifically in regards to special education, that we're making sure that our STEM curriculum is accessible to every single learner in our classroom. And also advocating for our students that we know often um, can be a a population that is either voiceless or overlooked. We need to amplify their worth and their value that they can add to the field. And that starts in our classrooms by including them in our STEM curriculum, giving them the same opportunities as their peers to be challenged and be part of learning about all the disciplines of STEM. And I think that luckily, with assistive technology, with the hands-on experimentation, with just the curiosity and within how, nuanced the different topics of STEM can be, it really does offer endless opportunities to adapt for every learner. And it does allow us to accommodate and modify the curriculum and the activities so that we can ensure that every student in our classroom does feel like they belong. So that is my final thoughts on that. I hope you all enjoyed, and I wish you all a great term B of our semester.